Hey guys, Michael here with a quick update on Solo, a Star Wars story. The review embargo just lifted a few hours ago, and so the reviews are in. And the general consensus seems to be that it's decent, not terrible, but not particularly good. It's just kind of okay, I guess. Right now on RottenTomatoes.com, the tomato meter is sitting at a 72% fresh rating based on a collection of 76 reviews, and the average score is 6.5 out of 10. On Metacritic, it is sitting similarly at a 67%. So now with the tomato meter, first of all, that's going to go a little bit up and down as the next day or two goes on and more reviews come in. But people have to remember that that is not an average rating. That's a ratio of recommendations to non-recommendations. In other words, if your review is positive, if it's a 6 out of 10 or more, then it counts it as fresh. Doesn't matter if it's 9 out of 10 or 7 out of 10. It's the same. It counts as fresh. And if you have a 1 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10, that's still, or a 5 out of 10, that still counts as rotten. So it's a ratio of recommendations to non-recommendations. And the consensus seems to be settling around 6 and 7 out of 10 for most reviewers. And that's on the line between fresh and rotten. So let's just take a look at a few samplings of some reviews here. IGN.com gave it a 7 out of 10. And on Collider, Christian Harloff expressed disappointment, but disappointment that it wasn't great. Which is notably honest, because they're usually accused of being Disney shills at Collider. Rebecca Pale in Film Journal International sums it up as Solo doesn't break new ground, but with an adventure this fun, that's just fine. Rafer Guzman, writing for Newsday, gives it 2 out of 4 stars with the headline, disappointing, marginally entertaining. He starts it off with, sorry Star Wars fans, the first dud of the new series has arrived in Solo, a Star Wars story. Matt Zuller, writing for RogerEbert.com, says, as unnecessary prequels go, Solo, a Star Wars story isn't bad. It's not great either, though. Alonso Duralde for The Wrap writes, as an intergalactic adventure, it's mostly adequate, with some very successful elements, but if you stripped away the Star Wars names and places, it's doubtful that it would spawn much excitement. Peter Travers, writing for Rolling Stone, gives it 2.5 stars out of 4 and has high praise for Alden Ehrenreich in the role, which is a very common thing, actually. Most people seem to be saying that Alden Ehrenreich does a pretty good job in the role. USA Today gives it 3 out of 4 stars and says Solo is much more akin at its core to an Indiana Jones movie in the way its often hapless rogue bounces between sticky and or speedy situations. On the reverse side of this, Walter Chaw, writing for Film Freak Central, gives it 1 out of 4, saying Solo is prequel bad. Scott Mendelson, writing for Forbes, brings up a point in his review, which was more or less negative. But he says, there remains no artistic reason for this movie to exist. But if this were an original or based on cult source material, I would argue that it was an entertaining bit of major studio pulp fiction, with a decent cast, some fine action sequences, and a few small-scale surprises. And he goes on to say, it's also the first live-action Star Wars that feels like a random adventure taking place just out of frame from the core Empire versus Rebellion struggle. So the general consensus seems to be this is not the disaster that some feared, it's not a train wreck, it's entertaining enough, it's fine, but it's nothing special. Some people really like it as a fun and, if not sort of meaningless, I guess. This is what Christian Harloff from Collider was saying was, what's the point of this movie? And it seems like it's really just a sort of fun adventure that takes place in that galaxy far, far away. And I think maybe in 10 years, this film might be looked at a little bit differently once it's no longer sort of an event with all this drama behind the scenes and being released in theaters and expectation about what it has to do at the box office and coming off the heels of The Last Jedi. If you look at it in terms of just like a random comic book or a random Star Wars novel that you can pick up and just read about a sort of side story adventure, that seems to be what it is, what people are saying it is. So anyway, guys, there you go. The consensus seems to be a solid sort of 6.5, 7 out of 10 sort of range, and most people seem to say, hey, that's just fine. It's not the disaster that some people thought it was, and that's the reason why Disney has been releasing this to the press so far in advance, just to reassure people, even if this is not a great film, it's not a disaster as some people feared. And hey, that's good news, right? Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.